If you're here watching this, chances are you have tight hamstrings and you want to do something about that. I'm going to share with you the golden tidbits of knowledge that I've learned from stretching my hamstrings almost every single day for 1,000 days, and share with you the things that have helped me stay super consistent and get the exact results I wanted. Overall, improving the health, flexibility and strength of a very commonly tight body part, the hamstrings. And just for your entertainment, at the end of this video, I'll give the splits a go just to see if I can do it. Bearing in mind, I do not train specifically for the split. So about 3 years ago, like any normal person would, I made a 5-year plan to sort out my tight hamstrings. I did this because, like so many people, my hamstrings were the most notably tight part on my body and they were giving me the most problems. To the point where my partner would give them a massage and she'd say they felt like a bag of rocks on the back of my legs and they were super tight. This is a picture I took 3 years ago to show where I was at then. As you can see, I was nowhere near the elusive 90-degree of range of motion that anyone with tight hamstrings dreams of. The plan was to try just about every single different method to see what actually worked for me. I tried weighted stretching, yoga, static stretching, but none of these really worked for me, and I'll explain more about why this is. Even though I was staying pretty consistent, everything changed when I got a phone call from my mum asking me if I wanted to go on a fitness workshop called Fascia and Feelings. Now this sounded right up my street, so I had to agree to it. In this workshop, I found so many nuggets of information that changed my path's trajectory for good. This was because the things I learned not only helped make me stay stronger, they also saved a lot of time that I didn't realize I was wasting. So the first nugget of information, and I can't stress the importance of this enough because it doesn't sound like a lot. Mr. John Polly, the trainer of the course, revealed to me that when you stretch a muscle for longer than 2 to 4 seconds, that muscle actually starts to switch off. And this actually gives that muscle more length because it's relaxed and it's not needed to be used at that time. So although this does give you flexibility, what it also does is switches your muscles off. And that's super important to know for someone who doesn't want that effect. This is why you've always been told not to do static stretching before heavy or explosive exercise. This is because as the muscle is switched off, it's also lax and less stable. So it will reduce your strength and can also increase the risk of injury. And for me, this was so important because I'm basically always jumping in to exercise throughout the day. So where I was holding static stretches in the middle of the day for 2 to 3 minutes at a time, trying to get longer and longer stretches to help get more flexibility and mobility, this was actually just counterproductive to everything else I was doing in that day. And the results were never gonna come this way. So in short, when you never hold a stretch, you actually keep that muscle elastic, increasing range of motion and mobility, but whilst also keeping the stability in that muscle. So your muscles can always stay fired up and ready to go. This changed things in my journey because it meant that I could stretch whenever the hell I wanted, and I didn't have to worry about any negative effects from yoga or static stretching slowing me down. This is why both yoga and static stretching didn't work for me. They just relaxed me way too much. This tip also dramatically reduced the time I had to spend stretching because I wasn't holding stretches for minutes at a time. I could just bang out a few reps wherever and whenever I wanted. So that's what I did. Another key thing I've learned on my journey so far is that stretches are always better when they are done in multiple different directions. This is because the fascia in your body is laid out in every single direction. So when you stretch your body, you should be utilizing this and stretching in every single direction too. By doing this, it really helps get to the nitty-gritty parts of your muscles and fascia, kind of like wringing out a sponge and squeezing the last little bits out. So every stretch you do, you just get a little bit extra from it, getting better results in the same amount of time spent stretching. So alongside stretching in this journey, I've also done something else that's really important for the health and mobility of my hamstrings, and this is strengthening them using resistance. Strengthening a muscle helps improving the range of motion, because when your body senses that a muscle is strong and stable, it will allow you to get a deeper, further range of motion, because it's not afraid that if you pull it too far, it might get injured. So a stronger muscle can lead to a more flexible muscle too. The way I went about strengthening my hamstrings was like this. All I needed to do was add in a few more hamstring movements into my strength training program and kind of focus a little bit more on those, doing a few more than I might think necessary, just to make sure I've absolutely smashed my hamstring strength. The exercises I added into my strength training program were a single leg RDL, a hamstring curl, and the GHD back extension. These movements were great as well because they also brought my hamstrings through an entire full range of motion, gaining that important strength in that full stretched position. This leads me on to my next point, which is weighted stretching. Now, I have tried specific weighted stretching, but I find the progression really slow and tricky to do. This is because when a muscle senses load at the end of its range of motion, it will actually reduce the range that it's going to give that muscle to protect it from snapping, basically. This means that when you do a weighted stretching program, you have to progress incredibly slow. And I find this quite boring. So when I lift weights, I keep it heavy. And when I stretch my muscles, I keep it nice, light, and relaxed, treating them as two separate things. This isn't to say that I might not use weighted stretching in the future to further progress my current elastic mobility that I'm doing at the moment. Another golden tidbit I learned from the workshop I did was this simple test that I can show you. All this test does is show you whether you have tightness in the lower part of your back chain or the upper part of your back chain. Now, this was really important for me to learn because what I didn't realize is that the top part of my chain was already quite loose and flexible, and the bottom part of my chain was really tight. So when I was stretching, because I was stretching my upper body as well, I was basically just making my already quite loose and stretchy upper body even stretchier, and my hamstrings themselves weren't getting the attention they needed. So by doing this test, I was able to prove that, and ever since I've known that piece of knowledge, I've barely needed to stretch my upper body, and I've been able to focus solely on the lower body and the hamstrings where the problem lied. The test is super simple. So what we're going to test is a simple good morning movement, a slight bend in the knees. We're just going to keep a straight torso, and we're just going to see how much range of motion we can get by doing this. Next, we're going to tilt our pelvis under, kind of like a scared cat, and then we're going to do the exact same movement, and we're just going to see how that feels and see how far we can go doing that. And then for the final part of the test, we're just going to tilt our hips back like we're sticking our butt out for an Instagram picture, and then we're going to test again the range of motion that we get. Now, if you were like me and you actually got more of a range of motion when your butt was tucked under like this, then that means your top half of your body is looser. And if you got more of a range of motion when you stuck your butt out like this, the bottom half of your body is looser and the top half is tighter. And if you do this in a room of 30 people, chances are half of the room will be one way and half of the room will be another way, which I thought was really interesting. So just knowing that piece of information has really helped me be able to stretch my hamstrings way more effectively and waste less time stretching body parts that I did not need to stretch. So I think it's also important to talk about genetics, because maybe my hamstrings just aren't meant to be as flexible as another person. And this is definitely true. See, what I have, and a lot of people that have tight hamstrings and a more flexible upper body is a very long torso. This means that when I stand up and bend over, because my torso is so long, I'm almost toppling over. This means that the amount of strength and stability my hamstrings need to keep me stood upright when I'm bending forward is so much that my body naturally is gonna sort of tighten the hamstrings up to not allow me to topple over. And if I did want to stand up and bend over at 90 degrees, my hamstrings would actually need way more flexibility to keep me in a balanced position. This can be shown by this simple metaphor. Long legs, long torso. Short legs, long torso. So in short, all this means is that my journey, I'm going to struggle to get that 90-degree flexibility that I'm kind of aiming for. But that's absolutely fine, because flexibility isn't the end goal necessarily. What I'm looking for is a healthy body. And arbitrary numbers like 90 degrees don't necessarily correlate directly to health. So that's fine. So where am I at now? Let's do that test to see how far I've got in 3 whole years. Okay. So bear in mind, I've barely warmed up. I've literally just been outside filming that video. This is how far my range of motion can take me. That's quite incredible actually. I've just watched that video back and that is far further than I thought I could get. So I'm really happy with that. I'm gonna actually warm up now and see if I can get any further. So yeah, I'll compare this to the first picture. I'm basically at 90 degrees. This is great. So although I haven't gained a whole load of range of motion, what is important is that my hamstrings feel way more recovered, they feel way more mobile, and they just feel like when I go to move, they just so much more free, and I find it so much more easy and I don't feel tight all the time. So I do feel so much better off for all the practice that I've done. So don't be disheartened by the results. And bear in mind that prior to these 3 years, I was also really active and stretching my hamstrings a lot already. So if you're someone who hasn't been so active and hasn't done a lot of mobility work already, your results will be way better than mine, and you might increase your mobility by this much in a month or 2. And the most important thing for me is what I've found on this journey is ways to make my hamstring training super consistent and easy, so I don't even have to think about it or I don't have to put any effort in, I just do it. So in 50 years time, when I'm 80 and all my friends are getting hip replacements, I will thank myself for finding these easy methods that I've been able to implement in my daily practice. And now for the splits. I'm going to try get my crotch down to this block. Oh. Okay. Okay. There you go. Hopefully this has been entertaining, and I hope that I can help you also make flexibility and mobility this easy so that you can do it too, because I think everyone should be able to look after their body, and that is the ultimate goal. Peace out.